In the spirit of some of the things that Vincent said about proximity and voice and people who have the authority to speak in ways that we may not, I'll just say that, you know, I've sort of moved on from my early work in New Mexico, which was focused on intergenerational heroin addiction within families that have experienced long histories of material, economic, and cultural dispossession, Hispano population in northern New Mexico. That said, I am from this place, and so I return there multiple times a year, and I remain in close contact with a number of the families, and I think part of proximity is return, and returning and being open to the pain of returning. Through this relationship, particularly with the one family that I write about in the book, some of you may recognize the Martinez family, Bernadette, Eugenia, and Ashley. I was given an archive of prison letters that were written during the period when Bernadette, who was both a mother and a daughter in this 3 generations of women, was incarcerated for a nonviolent drug-related offense. And she gave me the letters in 2009 with the explanation that she couldn't live with them, but she also didn't want to lose them. And so I understood that, and so she wanted me to hold onto them for her, and she had a very precarious housing situation. And so I did, and then eventually began to read them. And as I began to read them, I realized what they were in terms of a body, not just of correspondence between kin, but you know, a history that had been curtailed in many different ways, partly through the carceral system itself, but also the circumstances that led to Bernadette's incarceration. And in any event, what I was going to do is share with you some of the letters and the way that I've been thinking about them as a form of post-colonial historiography, and working with Bernadette and the mother and daughter to give the letters a kind of, to make them more into a story that is really a story about the contemporary experience of being a post-colonial subject, living in a land that you have such deep historical connections to, but being ultimately displaced from that land, which is not only the stories of the Hispanos, but clearly the Native American communities that also live in this region. And ultimately being swept up in the acceleration of a kind of a carceral apparatus, and what that does to the family and what that does to women in particular. And I'll just say that the letters, which hopefully we'll be publishing parts of them soon, they forced me to begin exploring other things that I had not explored when I was doing my original research that comprised the book. They led me to places that I did not expect to go. And it was because I kept returning, going home, meeting with the people that I so often thought when I left, I'm never coming back here. But I would go back, and that return, that proximity, that neighborliness opened up this whole world that I think very much speaks to some of the themes that Baba puts forward in terms of the potential for particular kinds of voices, the voices of those that have suffered the sentence of history, as he puts it, to revitalize critique. And also as a literary form, and a form of relationality that would otherwise have been invisible if Bernadette had not given me the letters to take care of. So my role as caretaker over the years since 2009 has turned into archivist and ethnographer of an archive. And it is partly because of my readings of certain post-colonial theorists, but also feminist historiographers, that I ended up going in this direction. And I've been really trying to figure out a way to bring the authors of the letters with me, and to think about new modes of ethnographic writing that don't just absorb the voices of our informants into our own voice, but actually where we can sort of stand beside each other